Welcome, learners. I am Tazul Huda, Assistant Professor, Department of Islamic Studies, Aligarh Muslim University. Today we will discuss about the renowned personality of the 18th century, Shah Waliullah, often referred as Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlavi, because he was an expert of the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. That's why he earned the title of Muhaddis, as he belonged to the city of Delhi. So that's why he became famous as Dehlavi. Dear learners, let's have a glance. What was a condition, the socio-religious condition of the Muslim during the 18th century? Because our personality has flourished in the 18th century. So it's important for us to understand the condition, the social religious condition of the 18th century about the Muslims. First of all, taking the social condition, what we found in the 18th century, the social condition of Muslims in India was mainly influenced by the decline of the Mughal Empire, which has previously provided a sense of stability and power for the Muslim community. It was the great Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb who had died in the first decade of the 18th century. Up to the period of Aurangzeb, the Muslims were having stability and power with them. But after the demise of Aurangzeb, when his son became the ruler, what we found that the social conditions of the Muslim gradually getting downward. Because from here, we found the influence of the Britishers in the Indian scenario. So that's why. So we can say that the social condition during the 18th century was gradually heading towards its lowest end. Dear learners, many Muslims of that period, especially we can say the nobles and those who belong to the aristocratic background, they had also faced the economic challenges as I have said, the empire was declining, weakening. That had led to the loss of land and resources, which has once supported their status also. So they started facing the challenges, the economic challenges, the social challenges, the political challenges. Dear learners, within this period, the history narrates the rise of the regional powers and as well as the increasing presence of the European or the British colonial forces. This has complicated the social dynamic or the fabric of the Muslims as they navigated a changing political landscape, because it became a very complicated that the Muslims were in the power, but the Britishers are coming. So it is complicating the social dynamic and as well as the political landscape. Hence, what we found that education among the Muslims during this period were very much limited. Many of them do not rely on the traditional religious school, that is madrasa, for learning, which focus primarily on the Islamic subjects rather than the broader subject. From here, we found the Muslims were reluctant to enroll their children in the madrasa, the Islamic traditional religious schools. They had their own view, own perspective. One can understand just because of the doctrinal differences also. Many people do not want to join any school, any madrasa. Dear learners, the social hierarchy within the Muslim community was diverse, with the distinction based on caste, occupation, and regional affiliations that lead to the varying experiences and opportunities among different peoples. Dear learners, many Muslims have engaged themselves in trade and commerce, especially in the urban cities, where they contributed to the economy somehow, but also they have faced competition from the other communities like the Hindus and the European, the Britishers, because they had also set up their industries. They were also participating in trade and commerce. So gradually we find that the Muslims economically were drenching. Dear learners, another important aspect was the cultural contribution of the Muslims. And it was very significant that they had contributed extensively in the field like the art, literature, architecture, which left a rich heritage for the Indian culture. My dear learners, the religious identities played a crucial role in the social life also. There were many religious identities, and it has played very important role in the social lives of the Muslim, because they face, or in the face of the external pressure and changing societal norms, they try to maintain their traditions and the practices, because they were very much concerned and there were external pressure on them. So they had sought to maintain their tradition and practices. Dear learners, this period also saw the emergence of the reform movements within the Muslim community of India, as some leaders sought to address social issues and promote education and modernization also. This is the reason that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and other reformers had tried to instill the message of the Islam, that it demands that education is necessary for everyone. Dear learners, the social condition of Muslims in the 18th century of India can be marked by a complex interplay of decline, adaptation, and resilience as they navigated the challenges of rapidly changing world. Dear learners, let's have a glance over the religious condition of India in the 18th century. As we are aware, India is and was the diverse land with a rich tapestry of culture and religion, including a significant Muslim population. that played a vital role in the subcontinent's history. Because the Shah, as he tried to instill the aspect of the reform, because he didn't find this thing in the society, the religious condition. So, what we found just before the beginning of the Shahullah's reform movement, that we call as Walillahi movement, we found that it has a large number of cultures and religion, and it has played a very important role in the history of the region. What we found that the Mughal Empire, which was at that time the dominant force in India, started declining with the time. And as it started declining, the region witnessed the political instability and as well as the fragmentation that affected the Muslim community very much. Dear learners, during that time in the 18th century, many Muslims were involved in the administration and military of the Mughal Empire. As the empire was weakening, their position and influence started diminishing, because majority of the people started losing their job because they were employed by the Mughals, and the Mughal power were gradually coming to an end. This has led to the economic challenges for them. Dear learners, during this time we found the rise of the regional power, such as the Maratha, such as the Sikhs. Somehow there were some conflict between the Muslims and the other regional power. In many occasions we found it caused them to lose land and the resources also. That Muslim has to lose their land and the resources because it was annexed by the Marathas, the Sikhs, the Britishers. Dear learners, despite all sort of challenges, in the 18th century we observed and witnessed that the Islamic culture was flourishing, especially we can say in the field of literature, art and architecture. Many educational institutions were established which depicted the advancement in the literature, art and the architecture also. Despite these things, but these were very few in number, very little in number. Dear learners, we also find that during this period, many Sufi orders have also gained prominence. And these Sufi orders had somehow tried to provide the spiritual guidance and as well as to foster a sense of community among the Muslims, which has helped to maintain their religious identity. The Sufi orders, majorly at that time, there were four Sufi orders, and remaining were somehow their subsect. Number one, the Sohrawardi. A very few members or peoples were associated to this Sufi order. Number two, the Chishtiya Sufiya. Maximum number of the people, especially of the northern Indian side, were inclined toward the Chishtiya Sufi order. The Naqshbandi, it was also have a considerable impact on the Muslim society. We can say it was just because of the work of Imam al-Rabbani, Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi, who is also referred as Mujaddid al-Fasani. A considerable number of the people were associated, attached to the Naqshbandi Sufi order, and as well as the Qadri Sufi order. It is the largest Sufi order of the world, but in India, it comes next to the Chishtiya Sufi order. So overall, we can say that during this time, the 18th century, the Sufi orders has gained prominence, and more or less every or people belonging to different walk of life, the Muslims especially, somehow got associated to any particular Sufi order. And these Sufi orders has tried to foster a sense of community among the Muslims. And just because of this one, a bond in the community was observed. Despite they were divided on various aspects, but somehow they were united also. My dear learners, this period marked by the growing interest in the Islamic scholarship also. Many scholars has produced work in the field of theology, philosophy, and law. They had contributed to the intellectual heritage of the Muslim community. Who were they? The number one, we can find the great Imam Rabbani, Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi. He has written large number of work and tried to give a shape to that society through their works. His work were basically based on theology as well as the philosophy. We can say it was Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi who had tried to reinterpret the Sufi doctrine. He re-examined the Sufi doctrine. The Sufi doctrine that was very much prevalent in the society. The Wahdatul Wujud. And he analyzed through his work, through his experience, his observation, that the Wahdatul Wujud is the incorrect. It should be Wahdatul Shahood. So, like Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi, there were many other. For example, our personality, Shah Dehelvi, he himself has extensively written in the 18th century. Numerous works are very important. He had tried to write on various issues and aspects of the Muslims of the world. Dear learners, the arrival of the European colonial power, especially the Britishers, it had started to reshape the socio-political landscape. And as the socio-political landscape was reshaped, Muslims started facing new challenges as they navigated their place in that changing society. as they were observing and considering what is their position in the changing society. Interaction between Muslims and other religious communities, such as Hindus and the Christians, were complex, with both cooperation and conflict occurring. A different group sought to assert their identity. This is happening in the. So he insisted upon the interaction between the Muslim and the other religious community so that the differences can be minimized and resolved. Dear learners, the religious condition of the Muslims was a blend of the resilience and adaptation. As they faced the decline of Mughals, while striving to preserve their culture and religious heritage also. My dear learners, let's have a glance over the significance of the Shahwalullah view on Islamic history. And what is significance in the Islamic history that we have to understand? Then we can understand about his personality, his biography also. Shahwalullah was a prominent Islamic scholar. He was a reformer. He was known for his effort to revive and strengthen Islamic teaching in India during a time of the political and social turmoil. He had worked for the welfare of the Muslims to revive the Islamic teaching in the Muslim community, which lacked in understanding the tenets of Islam. Dear learners, Shah Waliullah Dehlvi has played a very important and crucial role in bridging the gap between different Islamic sects, promoting unity among Muslims by encouraging dialogue and understanding. Dear learners, his masterpiece writing is Hajjatullah al-Baligha. In this work, he had tried to address various theological issues and sought to clarify the misconception about Islam. And the style, the approach he has utilized was to make complex ideas accessible to the general public. That whosoever is the reader, he can understand the theological issues and the theological issues and the misconception about the Islam. Dear learners, Shah Waliullah, the pioneer of the reform movement in India, was a very key figure in the development of the Muslim thought or the Islamic thought in South Asia. It was just because of his thought many new movement had started. We can simply say that it was Shah Waliullah whose teaching has led to the foundation of many other socio-religious and political reform movement of Muslims in India. For example, the movement like the Deobandi and the Barelvi, They were inspired by the teachings of the Shah Wali Dehelvi. Dear learners, Shah Wali has recognized the significance of social justice. He had advocated for the rights of the oppressed. He had also emphasized that true Islamic practice involved compassion and fairness. So, social justice is very important. So, we understood that he has an influence, a significance in the Indian Muslim society. Dear learners, the writings, the teachings of Shah Waliullah Dehelvi has always encouraged Muslims to engage in the contemporary issues. It urges them to apply Islamic principles to the modern challenges, which remains relevant even today. Dear learners, he had established a network of his students and followers, creating a legacy that would continue to inspire generation of Islamic thinkers and reformers. This was his position in the Islamic history. Dear learners, the Shah Waliullah's impact on Islamic history is profound, as he not only contributed to the religious scholarship, but he also laid foundation, a groundwork, as I have said, for the future movements that were aimed at to revitalize the Muslim community in India and as well as beyond India.